Hey there, hi there, ho there, I am Shut Up James, and welcome to my channel. Thank you for clicking on this video. I'm really excited to sit here and talk about these movies today. We're going to be ranking all of the horror remakes ever that I've seen. Now that I'm saying it out loud, that sounds like a great undertaking that maybe I should not do. But here we are, whatever. Go big or go home. Let me start this video by discrediting myself. I have not seen every horror remake that exists. I apologize. This is my personal ranking of best and worst horror remakes. Originally this was like a top 5, a top 10, a top 15, and I was like, there are just so many horror remakes, so I've actually just broken them down into categories to make it easier, simpler to digest. All right, this is how the categories are gonna go, so divert your gaze this way. We're gonna start with the list of the movies I have not seen. That category will be quick. Next category will be the list of remakes that I think are just fine. They just exist. We'll have a list of guilty pleasure remakes. Then we'll move into the remakes that are really good that maybe still don't make my top 10, but like give respect where respect is due. Then we move into my top 10 favorites. Those are the ones I'll probably talk about the most. Then we'll go into the remakes that I think are bad, and we will end the entire video with the remake that I think is just a big old pile of shit. If you want to follow along with me, please do so. Otherwise, you can use the little time cards in the description to skip to different categories. And because these are broken down by category, these are not in any particular order. Even once we get to my top 10, it's not like this is number 10, number 9, no. They just exist in whichever category in which they exist. Disclaimer, this list is not going to include reboots or requels or recalibrations. Just because the movie has the same name as the original does not necessarily mean it's an actual remake. But first, it's time for my obligatory plea. If you are watching this video and you're liking this video and you're commenting on this video, then please subscribe to my page and turn on notifications so you can be reminded of when I do these ridiculous things. Let's do this! Okay, so the list of horror remakes that I have not seen. The Town That Dreaded Sundown. I haven't seen the original either, but that means that I haven't seen those. Jacob's Ladder. I forgot that they even remade it a few years ago. Haven't seen it. Black Christmas 2019. I have not seen that remake. I know there is the other remake that'll be somewhere on this list, but I haven't seen the 2019 movie and I don't plan on seeing it. I haven't seen The Grudge from 2020. I think that's when it came out. I have not seen the Night of the Living Dead remake from the 90s. I have not seen the Night of the Demons remake. I have not seen the Martyrs remake. I have not seen the Suspiria remake. There. Category over. And if any of those are worth watching, let me know in the comments below and I'll watch them. Okay, category is they exist. This is my list of horror remakes that just are. I don't hate them, but I definitely don't love them. There are probably good things about them, but overall they are just kind of meh. Pet Sematary remake. Meh. This is gonna catch me a lot of flack, but the Friday the 13th remake. I wanted to love this, I just didn't. It almost falls into the category of being a reboot or almost a requel. Like, it could still be considered as being a part of the original timeline. As a film, I don't enjoy it. For me, it uses too much of what I didn't like about the originals. Another remake that just exists that I feel like people will think that it should be in my category of I hate this, but it's kind of meh. For me, I don't hate it, but it's A Nightmare on Elm Street. I like what they tried to do. I like that they tried to go a more serious route. It is beautifully shot, but it does feel rather small in the grand scheme of things, and the over-relying on CGI takes away any actual horror, you know? At the end of the day, it's gotta be scary. Another one I might catch flack for, these are like, the ones I think are meh, are like the heavy-hitting remakes, right? So the next one is Rob Zombie's Halloween. I find this movie to be incredibly exhausting. I don't hate it. It just simply is, you know? He tried some things. I don't hate that he tried some things. I think that the fact that it's like two separate movies, it's just so like draining to me. It takes forever to get from the beginning to the end, and then when it's over, I'm just like, okay. It gets props for bringing back Danielle Harris though. Another one is Child's Play. I did like this remake. It's not a bad movie. It's just, it kind of rubs me the wrong way that they took Don Mancini's original idea, because originally he had a script that was a factory worker purposely tampers with the toy and the toy ends up in the hands of this kid whose mom works for the company. Like literally that was Don Mancini's original idea. They changed it to the voodoo thing after they had already purchased the script from him. So it kind of like irks me that the company, to make a quick buck, was like, well, let's just take that original script that we still own and make that. Is the movie bad? No. The stars should have aligned because of the talent involved, but it's just meh. And I'm sorry if it feels like we're speeding through these. The category I'm gonna spend the most time on is my top 10. Another one is the 1999 remake, The Haunting. This movie looks pretty, and it's got A-list actors, director, everything, but it just is more like a slow, almost creepy drama. It's just not scary. And if you're not gonna be scary and you're gonna lean into being more of a drama, then you should probably have characters that we care about, but I don't think we even care about the characters that much, although Catherine Zeta-Jones in that movie is iconic. Another just It Exists remake for me is The Hitcher. I remember liking this back when it first came out because it's like fast-paced and flashy and fun, but upon trying to review, I realized that's kind of all it is. It's very much like an MTV era remake. There's no substance. It's just like literally there's a chase sequence. I think that's like a music video. I think this was directed by a music video director, which is why it's so visually appealing and in your face, but at the end of the day, there's nothing to it. And then lastly, a remake that simply exists, which breaks my heart because this is a movie that as a kid I loved, and as an adult I sought out for so long, finally got my hands on it again, watched it, and was like, what? And that is the Tobe Hooper directed film Invaders from Mars. This is technically a remake of another movie called The Invaders from Mars. And I don't know, the scares weren't scary, the camp wasn't camping. I just don't enjoy that movie. And you're allowed to disagree with me. And if you disagree with me, let me know kindly in the comments. And if you agree with me, then let me know loudly also in the comments. Next category would be the Guilty Pleasures remakes. This category and the next category could almost be combined, but for the sake of making things complicated, I'm gonna separate them. So these following movies are the ones that I feel like you either love or you hate. And for me, that makes them a guilty pleasure. First up is The Grudge with Sarah Michelle Gellar. When I first saw this movie, it scared the shit out of me. The whole like, whatever the hell she does? No. No thank you. Not only were the visuals unlike anything we had really seen before besides having already had The Ring come out the year prior, but the story structure, it was so imbalanced. You didn't know where you were or when you were or what was going on. And regardless of how ridiculous the movie is, the jump scares work. Next! Quarantine. I know her screaming is annoying, but this movie makes me so anxious. I think it's a blast. There's a level of anticipation from go. It's one of the few found footage films that really successfully utilizes the found footage aspect. A lot of times the found footage films feel there's too many F's in what I'm saying. The found footage films feel too awkward and janky, or they feel too overproduced. It's too staged. I felt like this balanced both really well. Again, I know her screaming is annoying, but I enjoy the film. Oh gosh, when that guy like falls down from like the balcony or something in the middle of someone's conversation and just like breaks his body. So good. Next on my list of guilty pleasures for horror remakes, Black Christmas 2006. Black Xmas. Stupid fun. Stupid fun. They advertised it as the ultimate sleigh ride, and they were not lying. Fun and gory. Gory and fun. That is Black Christmas 2006 to me. I probably rewatch it the most of all the remakes I'm talking about, to be totally honest. Next, Sorority Row. I haven't seen this one in a while, but in the same vein as Black Christmas 2006, just make it fun and gory. Period.
I run a house with 50 crazy bitches.
Next one, House of Wax. So again, same thing. We're noticing a trend here. Like, make it gory and stupid, and James will like it. So, House of Wax, 2005. Let's make the premise bonkers and then amp up the violence for no reason. And I don't care what anyone says, Paris Hilton's chase sequence is so damn good. So damn good. Okay, category is closed. That was guilty pleasures. Now we're moving into remakes that I might not watch as often or as much, but I can recognize that they are really good remakes, or just good solid films in general. The Hills Have Eyes, 2006. Brutal fucking movie. This is a movie that maintains the original story and structure, but excels by amping up the tone. Like when you think of The Hills Have Eyes, you likely think of this movie before you think of the original. And although that movie was shocking to say the least, it was also campy and weird and silly. In place of any weird quirkiness that the original has, this just fills that space with brute strength and violence.
Breakfast time!
Very well done. Very well done remake, in my opinion. Next is Straw Dogs from 2011. You probably forgot about that one. You forgot about Straw Dogs. So this is James Marsden and Kate Bosworth going to the South and fucked up shit happens. Most of the movie is very unnerving. Good acting, twisty story. I feel like it kind of went under the radar, but it is like a very well made movie, period. Besides the fact that it's a remake. So if you haven't seen it, you should go check it out. Straw Dogs. Next! This almost ended up on the Guilty Pleasures list, but that list was becoming exceptionally long, so I bumped it over here. And that is the 2001 film 13 Ghosts. So fun. This is such an elevation of the original story, giving the ghosts backstories, the practical effects. It's silly and scary. Another really good remake, Dawn of the Dead from 2004. This one almost made my top 10 for how it so perfectly raises the stakes of the original. Up to this point, you didn't get movies of this genre with such prestige and style. Elevated. The word is elevated. It manages to be a classic in its own right without shitting on the original. They both are individually classics and iconic. Next remake is Funny Games, which is strange because it's literally a shot-for-shot remake of the original by the same writer-director. I think he said he only changed like one scene, but overall the movie is incredibly dark and haunting and uncomfortable. It loses points though for that scene where they frickin' rewind everything though. Okay, last one on the list of this is a good remake, Amityville Horror 2005. Don't get mad. Again, these lists are divisive, right? That's the point. So I know a lot of people like this movie. I know some people like this movie, sorry. A lot of people don't like it. The reason I like it, besides shirtless Ryan Reynolds, is that the original isn't very fun. It's not a fun movie. It's not exciting. It's a very bland movie-going experience, if I'm being honest. This one has an energy to it. The camera movements are fantastic. It's visually shot very well. It definitely takes the premise of the original, but makes it much more enjoyable to sit through. And the jump scares. Tons of jump scares. And again, shirtless Ryan Reynolds. Okay, next category. My top 10 horror remakes of all time. After looking at all these movies and kind of dissecting them, I realized that what makes a really good remake for me is paying homage and respect to the original, but using it as a jumping off point to tell the story differently. Again, this is no particular order. I'm gonna start with John Carpenter's The Thing. Remember, this is a remake of The Thing from Another World, I believe it's called. This is a 0 to 100 experience from start to finish. You have visual contrasts of bright snow and very dark nights. You have tonal contrasts of slow, suspenseful whodunit moments and balls out horror gore. Take the sci-fi elements of the original, but turn up that feeling of impending doom by adding that element of surprise. It could be anyone. The scariest scene in that movie probably is the blood test scene. Because up to this point, yes, you've seen some horrific things, but you know all these characters, or you think you know all these characters. So that element of surprise of who could it be makes that so iconic. And that's one of the reasons that movie, to me, and I think to a lot of people, that movie stands the test of time. I actually made a modern trailer for that movie. It was a lot of fun making that. I'll put the link up above. All right, another top 10 horror remake, Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 2003. But James, you can't like that movie. Jessica Biel with the rain and she's running around with her weapon. Don't care. Love it. Love it. Culture shift. That movie. Starting the movie off with fake documentary footage was so clever. So it sets the mood tonally, but by suggesting new evidence has come to light, immediately lets the audience know that we're not forgetting about the original. We're simply growing upon it. That's what remakes should do, right? Suspenseful, graphic, uncomfortable. Oh, I have it right here. You know, they don't do physics. They don't okay, DVD might be shit now, right? But look at this, how cool. They used to go all out. This is a freaking trifold, quadfold. There's metal in here. Evidence is enclosed. They don't do it like this anymore. I want a Blu-ray, I want a 4K version of this movie, and I want it to be in this exact packaging now. Look how angry I just got. I'm not always a huge fan of giving characters backstory that don't need it. Case in point, the Halloween remake. But the character arcs and relationships given to Leatherface and his family don't distract from the horror, they really add to it. The horror is unrelenting in that movie. The scene with R. Lee Ermey, rest in power, R. Lee Ermey. That man is fantastic, but the scene in the van with the gun in the kid's mouth, I probably pissed myself. That was so scary, and it's nothing that's in the original movie. There is nothing like that sequence in the original film. So kudos to them. Kudos to them for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003. Even spawned a prequel, which I do also enjoy. Next on my list of top 10 horror remakes, The Ring from 2002. The idea of a malevolent force seeking you out relentlessly, without remorse, is an actual fear of mine that I think I actually acquired while watching this film when I was a kid. The more you know. Now, although the original is definitely scary, it does not hold a candle to the cinematography and atmosphere that the remake possesses. Everything is elevated here. The sense of dread in this film is palpable. Like, it makes me physically uncomfortable. That sense of impending doom for the entire runtime of a movie is very hard to pull off, and I feel like has only been done successfully really a few times besides here. It Follows would be a good example of when it was done well. Again, I keep forgetting to show, look at this, this is 4K, I believe. Oh, it's just Blu-ray, whatever, sexy. See, I also wish that they would do more steelbooks with slip covers. Look at that. And the part where she comes out of the TV at the end, got me fucked up. Got me fucked up! All right, next one is The Last House on the Left from 2009. Another great example of taking the core idea of the original, but expanding on its ideals in terms of story, characters, visuals, everything. A great way to have your remake not feel like it's just copying the original is to really invest in the development of the characters. This movie is so unflinching in its depiction of the antagonists, but also establishes a great dynamic with the protagonists. So every interaction between our heroes and our villains has a great sense of dread. This remake fully removes the silliness and awkwardness of the original and replaces it with sheer, relentless horror, but still has us rooting at the end. And that's Last House on the Left. Next is a movie that we actually just watched on this channel, and that is the 2013 remake, Evil Dead. You're Tyler. Similarly to The Last House on the Left, this movie removes the campiness of its original and leans heavily into the horror elements with amazing visuals, insane sound effects and gore, and body horror that would even make David Cronenberg flinch. At least once. At least when she cuts off her arm, or her face. There are so many times he would flinch. Of all the movies on this list, this probably has the least character development really going on for it, but it's only because you only get to see these characters in this environment. There's no fun to be had here, and that's, you know, to the benefit of the film. Like, there's no fun in cutting your arm off and getting a nail gun to the, oh my god, it's just so gross. And I loved it. Now, the next horror remake on this list is one of my probably top actual favorites that I rewatched the most, and it's the 2002 thriller, maybe more than anything, Red Dragon. This can be considered a second adaptation of the book by Thomas Harris, which takes place before the events of The Silence of the Lambs, but it's technically also a remake of Manhunter, which was an attempt to bring Hannibal Lecter to the screen before we got the casting of Anthony Hopkins. That movie is unique, and it's a relatively faithful adaptation of the novel, but it pales in comparison to the shock and suspense provided in the 2002 film. I think this is the film that Ridley Scott's Hannibal wanted to be. Suspenseful, intriguing, shocking, grandiose, devastating. The love story between Ralph Fiennes and Emily Watson's characters is so tragic and beautiful that it makes the inevitable downfall of our antagonist that much more difficult to watch. Giving him backstory and emotion does not remove the fact that he is a great threat. I love Red Dragon. I love Red Dragon. And another one. So another great horror remake, in my opinion, is The Crazies. This one came out in 2010. Similarly to movies like The Hills Have Eyes and Last House on the Left, where the original is shocking, you know, definitely, of course, but with some element of silliness, whether by accident or on purpose. This 2010 remake takes the elements of George A. Romero's original and elevates them in absolutely every way. The performances are heightened, the characters are grounded and relatable, the suspense is turned all the way up, the violence is so raw and brutal, and the set pieces are so terrifying because it's a baseball game. It's your kid's school. It's your neighbor's house. It's the diner down the street. This movie portrays that small town atmosphere so perfectly and then rips it to shreds. Also, Timothy Olyphant. Only a couple more in this category, so the next one is It from 2017. Having the movie follow just the younger versions of the protagonists and having their stories be really fleshed out was so damn genius. There is a mood established early on in this film that continually grows and builds. The suspense builds, the intensity of the scares build, the character arcs build. This is a very unique horror experience. Horror experience? It's not a horror experience. This is a very unique horror experience where you know evil is lurking, but you genuinely don't know when it's going to show itself. Case in point, the projector scene. Holy shit. Even though this is technically like an adaptation of half of Stephen King's book, it really is a remake of the original movie, let's be honest. So in the original, they're looking at the cute little book and Pennywise is all creepy. He's like in the book in town and he like does some somersaults and then he goes, rah, and his hand pops out and it's cheesy and silly, but as a kid, you're like, oh my gosh. In this one, he is in the projector and it's terrifying and the kids are screaming and it's terrifying and then the lights go out and it's terrifying and then he's a giant and it's terrifying. This movie pulled no punches. Written and directed and acted to perfection, this one is in a league of its own. Let's not talk about the sequel. All right, next up is House on Haunted Hill from 1999. This is a remake of a movie by the same name that came out in, I believe, 1959. I love when a movie can take a simple enough premise, but really deliver on like the twists and turns solely based on the character relationships. This is a movie about a bunch of people trapped in a house, snooze, but the real horror comes from how much you don't trust the other characters. As of 1999, we hadn't really seen a horror movie like this, or at least not one that called itself a haunted house movie. The fact that it's able to be so suspenseful and scary, while you've also got Jeffrey Rush, Famke Janssen, and Chris Kattan turning the camp up to 100, it's just priceless. Okay, this is the last one on my list of horror remakes that I love. Of course, I'm talking about The Blob. This bitch. What all of these good movies have in common is their dedication to character-driven storytelling. Establish the threat, yes, but first and foremost, give us characters to be scared for. We're introduced to a small town of characters, similar to like Tremors, where you kind of like everyone, but unlike Tremors, where I think we only lost one or two of our townspeople. In The Blob, we are forced to watch almost everyone die, and not just die, the deaths are horrific. This is another entry that turns up the camp, but we can't talk about horror remakes or monster movies or 80s movies in general without talking about the sheer terror and impact of The Blob. The whole movie is so unpredictable. The practical effects are amazing. The Blob can be anywhere. A guy gets pulled through the pipe of a sink. The chase scenes and action are relentless. That movie theater scene, are you kidding me? But the deaths are not only gruesome, they are tragic. These are characters that you, in less than 90 minutes, learned to love. I'm still upset that the sheriff and the lady at the restaurant never had their date. They even kill a kid. Epic. Just epic. Next category is my list of worst horror remakes. Again, this is my personal opinion, so I'm gonna start with one that we watched together on this page, and I will put the link up above, because if you want to just watch me be pissed for the duration of a film, because who wouldn't want that? I'm of course talking about the 2009, I believe, remake My Bloody Valentine. It's a high-budget 3D horror spectacle that, for me, loses points for removing all of the charm that made the original so enjoyable. Again, I have to like the characters that are dying. Next movie. This category is gonna go a lot faster than the previous one. One Missed Call. Clearly trying to be The Ring or The Grudge, but failing to give us characters that we connect with or any sense of urgency. Every scare comes off as silly. Obvious cash grab. Next is Carrie. I'm not talking about the TV movie remake. I'm talking about the Chloe Grace Moretz and Julianne Moore-led Carrie. Great performances, but lackluster execution. And that CGI. No. When a Stranger Calls. Badly acted PG-13 MTV teen thriller. Like, it was shot nicely, but the lead is so boring. Speaking of badly acted PG-13 teen horror remakes, Prom Night. What a bland, boring shell of a movie. I don't even want to talk about it. Poltergeist. Let's talk about useless remakes. Great cast, but it has no heart. The thing that made the original so great was that family connection, and there is no family connection in the Poltergeist remake. Sorry. And then lastly, in this category of just worst horror remakes, before I get to my top pick, this one was almost my top pick, but it survived somehow, I don't know. And that is the remake of The Fog. Oof. Okay, so here's my pick. I don't even have anything to say about that movie. So here's my pick for the worst horror remake ever. And that is Psycho. I mean, come on. Great casting choices and bold idea, but purposely creating a carbon copy of the original film is telling the audience that they have to compare it to the original. The reason to remake a movie in the first place is to expand on the original material. It can't even get points for filmmaking or creativity because it is trying to be the original. It's just one of those remakes that was made for, it seems like, all the wrong reasons. I will say though, Funny Games is an exception to this rule where it literally is copying the original shot for shot, but somehow still maintains the terror throughout. The Psycho remake is just so bland. So bland. The color scheme is not even, it's just bad. It's a bad movie. And that's it. That's my ranking of, there's like 35 movies we just talked about. I'm so sorry. I'm actually excited to kind of dive back into some of these. I mean, this is my opinion of these movies based on some of them having just watched, some of them having not seen in a few years. So I'm looking at The Crazies and Red Dragon, and I feel like I want to watch those tonight. Like, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications. Meet me in the comments. Let me know which remakes you love. Let me know which remakes you hate. Let me know which remakes I missed, because I know for a fact I left some out. I don't know which ones, but I know I must have. I've actually done movie reactions to a couple of these movies on this page, so I'll put the links for those in the description down below. As always, thank you for checking out this video. I am Shut Up James. Goodbye.